So thank you very much, everyone, for joining the session today and for your interest in the second ARSINOE Open Tender for Innovations. We're very happy to have you here and to tell you a little bit about what the whole endeavor is about, what we're expecting, and mainly the session, apart from giving you the overview, which you already have in the materials, but it's always good to have us go through it together. We also, or the main objective of this session is to hear your questions and any points of clarification that you might have after having gone through the materials of the call. So that's where we want to focus most of the attention today. But just to warm us up and to get the thing started, I will give you a quick overview of the whole thing and the specific requirements of the tender and so on. So yeah, my name is Gerardo Onsaldúa. I work at Ecological Institute and Brigade Connect, in this case, for the ARSINOE project. And I'm together here with my colleague Ina Petrenko, also from Brigade Connect. So let's get moving. What are the ARSINOE Open Tenders for Innovations? This is a series of tenders that we are using in the project to engage with climate adaptation and climate resilience developers from across Europe. So a lot of you that are in here now. This is a series, so this is right now the second tender that we opened. The first one ran between May and end of the summer this year as well. And the idea is to contribute to regional adaptation that we have within the 9 case studies, with some sub-case studies in there. So in total, 12 different communities that we have represented in the project, by helping them to identify promising or mature innovations that can be included in their portfolio of innovations. So for those of you not familiar with what this concept of the portfolio of innovations is, it is basically a package of, or imagine it as a catalog of potential solutions to climate challenges, especially looking at the adaptation and resilience aspects, that can range widely from not only technical solutions, but also social and governance innovations, issues that have to do with financing, adaptation, and so on. So in the end, it's a bit of a sort of an equipment or an infrastructure that comes together, and that each of the communities that are involved in the project can pick and choose from to set up their own sort of package. So we're trying to help them to build that by identifying promising innovations that could be fit for their specific case and context. We are helping them also, or the managers of these case studies, to integrate the relevant innovations that they then identify into the innovation packages that I was mentioning. So the specific packages that each of the 12 cases will have set up for themselves. And this applies not only for, the next couple of years that we have towards the end of, or a little bit less than 2 years that we have towards the end of the project, but also beyond. Of course, whatever is demonstrated, piloted within ARSINOE will remain in place and has the potential, of course, to be integrated with other solutions, with other initiatives, with other developments in those communities that look further into the future. So this is also where some potential interest and value would lie for the applicants. And the last point that we're orienting this effort on is to facilitate the collaboration of the case study partners, so the leaders and managers of these case studies, which are in some cases public administrations, but in others also academic institutions, in others even businesses or private entities, to help them establish the collaboration agreements and relationships with innovators via the awarding of contracts for the demonstration and co-developing of these solutions. So again, in some cases, there is experience on the side of the contracting parties with doing this, but in many others, there isn't. And so this is also a little bit the origin of the concept, of the idea of having this within ARSINOE as a way to help them gather additional experience on engaging with innovators, engaging with small entities that are focusing on, novel approaches to solving challenges that are driven by climate change. This will certainly become handy in the near future based on what we've seen already in terms of impacts. So that's a little bit the reason of being and sort of like the scope of the tenders. Then in terms of their structure, they are built up of 3 sequential phases. So we have the application phase, which is currently open and ongoing until the 8th of January. Then we have the evaluation and selection phase, which is split into 2. And then the contracting phase at the end of it. So this is quite straightforward. In the application phase, we have an open time where we are receiving applications via our online form. You have that link there in the presentation, but you also can access it via the website of ARSINOE. And yeah, the main thing here is we have a questionnaire of over 40 questions that you as innovators can fill in with your specific information and details. And then everything that we are collecting right now is, closed envelope until then the end of the 8th of January next year, when then the tender closes. This first phase of applications is closed. And then we start with the evaluation of everything, all the applications that have come in. So again, no one has access to that except for Brigade Connect until that date. And that's where we engage then the evaluation committees. Each of the case studies, each of the 12 communities that we have within ARSINOE has an evaluation committee that will then be assigned. These are normally 3 to 4 people that will be sitting together and going through the applications that are directed at their specific case study. Reviewing them based on a set of predefined criteria that we have with also predefined weighting for each of the criterion, and basically going through and evaluating each of the applications and then having a short listing of that. So that is the first part of the second phase. So the evaluation, whenever you hear me say evaluation, I am referring to this part where we go through all the online applications that we received in the first phase with the selection committee, with the evaluation committee, sorry, and do the first short listing of the applications. Once we have that short listing, and this will be somewhere between, imagine 3 to 5, some case studies might decide to invite more people, but for the most part, we will be gravitating between the 3 to 5 shortlisted applications that will be then invited to prepare and submit a 2-page demonstrator proposal. And this is where I start talking about the selection part of the second phase. So the selection basically entails this review or the submission and review of the 2-page demonstrator proposals. So what is the difference between the demonstrator proposal and the application? So the application goes via, as I said, the online application form with 43, 45 questions that we have there. That is standard for everyone, and of course has to be completed fully to be considered. The 2-page proposal is that, it's a shorter sort of space where you have to explain what exactly it is that you will be doing in the specific context of the case study that you have applied for. So you have a shorter sort of space, but you have a more directed attention to the specific case study that has invited you to participate in there. So this is the main idea or the main difference. There you will be talking a bit more about the details that when it comes to implementation, when it comes to timeline, when it comes to budget, and when it comes also to results that are expected or impacts that are expected with that. The assessment of these 2-page proposals is then carried out by the contracting party itself. So this is where the consortium itself hands over to the contracting party. And the reason for doing this is that we want to make this as smooth a process as possible for the contracting parties and for the innovators. So the idea is, if we allow this to happen, that the contracting party goes through their own procedures, their common procedures for procurement, they don't have to, go through extra hoops to actually achieve that, reach that contracting phase. That has been working fine in the first open tender, where we accompany the case studies through the first phase and in the evaluation part of the second phase. And then from there on, it's basically the case study managers that take over the main collaboration and preparation. And then the last and third phase of the tenders is the contracting. So this entails the preparation of a collaboration agreement. We have a standard version of that we hand over to the managers of the case studies. But then, of course, depending on what type of entity this is, that is a contracting party, depending on specific regulations and legislations at that level, there are always adjustments that are necessary to be included in that sort of standard template that we provide. Those adjustments and that sort of first draft of the collaboration agreement is to be then reviewed and revised by the invited innovator, by the selected party. And then there will be a round of revisions, and until then an agreement is achieved between both parties, and then they can proceed to the signing of the collaboration agreement. Once that is through, then basically the whole structure of the open tenders basically comes to an end, and then the phase of implementation of the demonstrator starts, which again should be running. I'll show you the dates that we have in front of us. Should be running for at the most 1 year after signing of the contract, towards March 2025, more or less is what we are envisioning. What are the general requirements? If you've probably all seen what these are from the website, I'll just fly through them quickly. The applicants have to be established legal entities based in one of the eligible countries, and you see the list there on the left bottom side. This is basically all eligible countries for Horizon Europe program, if you're familiar with that. But in any case, you see the list there. Applicants can be small or medium-sized enterprises, startup companies, spin-offs, universities, research institutes, multinationals. So basically the whole range of potential legal entities we have in there. It could be very big organizations. It can be very small organizations. The main idea here is that you have a legal registered sort of address, and some case studies have additional requirements that you should consult there in the supplementary material. But for the most part, these are the general requirements for all. And then another point is that the contracting of the innovation is possible without any conflicts towards the legal requirements. So we need to comply, as I said before, with the legal requirements that the contracting party is subject to. And this, since we have a couple of non-EU partners that are acting here as contracting parties, the case of Albania, for example, the case of North Macedonia, the case of Turkey, there are additional legal requirements, I mean, even for EU countries, that we have to consider to make sure that everything is to comply with. And again, in general, there shouldn't be any going against those contracting procedures. I don't expect that to be the case, but again, it's important to mention that. Second point, or second slide on general requirements. So the online application that I mentioned before, that is open right now until the 8th of January, it has to be submitted before then, so before the deadline, which is the 8th of January at the 11:59 p.m. And it has to be responded fully. It has to have responses to all of the questions. Only complete applications can be considered for the evaluation process. The selected innovators then that come to the second phase should be available and able to conduct any testing, any demonstration activities between the foreseeable date of the signing of the contract, which is April 2024, and the end of March 2025. So basically you have a year's time to carry out the testing and implementation activities, including any respective results reporting. This gives us time towards the end of the project, which is August 2025, September 2025, to still report to the Commission what the results of the implementation and what the full results of the open tenders have been as well. This is the reason for this timeline. And the last point is the innovation has to be, of course, relevant to the case study. It has to be capable of contributing to the objectives and to the challenges, or to addressing the challenges that each of the case studies has formulated in their specific tests. And again, you've seen those texts in the website and in the supplementary materials that are available there as attachments, as annexes. Please go and consult that. That's where the specific requirements and the specifications for each of the 12 entities are outlined, and this is where this relevance will be measured with. An initial sort of screening of the relevance is carried out by Brigade Connect as leader of the open tenders for innovations, but then this is of course revised and bounced with the owners or the managers of the case studies. What are the funds that are available for each of the innovators? So we have a ceiling of 50,000 euros for the demonstration activities. As I said, this is the ceiling. So it could be that a certain specific case study has or decides to spend less than that. For example, we have a couple of case studies that have a ceiling of 25,000 euros. They have another, and there is another case study that has decided to split their allowance into contracts of 33,000 euros. Again, all this information is available in the supplementary materials of the 12 case studies. So please have a look at that before you decide which one to apply for, because that's, of course, important information for you to decide what you can budget for in your application. So again, the most that you will see would be the 50,000, and from there you might find a few that have less or contracts for less budget. And then just an important point of clarification, again, it has come up a couple of times in questions already. A single innovator may apply to more than one case study. In this case, up to 3 case studies. You can send up your application to, and you have the option there in the application form to choose which ones you are shooting for, up to 3. But the total compensation that you can receive as a single entity for your contracted services will not exceed 50,000 euros. Again, this is the limit that we have set together with the Commission for the budget going to a single entity. This means you can have a contract with a single contracting party, a single case study for at most 50,000 euros. But you could also have several contracts if you have the capability to justify and verify or make it verifiable and auditable that the contracts are going to pay for completely exclusive services. If you are a one-person entity and you're having 2 contracts with 2 different case studies, that will be difficult to verify. It will be during an audit, it wouldn't go through. So it's important that you are able, if you are going for multiple contracts, that you are able to really distinguish between where the money is going for and how it's going to distinct places, to distinct people in the organization as well, so that an audit, in the case of an audit, that would go through. In any case, we expect for the most part to have single contracts between an innovator and a contracting party, one of the case study managers. What can be, in general terms, funded? Again, this is bound to change based on local legislation that regulates the procurement procedure for each of the cases. But in general terms, what you see here, construction and installation of demonstrators, software and platform development, development of devices, monitoring tools, and so on, payment of licenses and protected IP, logistics, transportation, testing, monitoring, conducting surveys or end user tests, for example. In terms of the other costs category, we have travel costs. Some of the case studies might limit how much is spent on these or how much goes to the other costs category, including travel costs. For example, in the case of Albania, we have only 20% of the contract can go to the other costs category. And there again, in the negotiations, there might be specifications for each of these items that I'm having here in the list, and there might be others. So again, keep an eye out for these things. But this is, in general terms, what can be paid for through the contracts. Then another important point of information is the timeline, of course, for the open tender. So we are right now undergoing the phase 1, which is the applications, starting from a couple of weeks ago when we launched, and it was actually the 23rd of November. I need to update that. And it will remain open until the 8th of January, as I mentioned already a couple of times today. So it's open now. You can access the application form via the website. Deadline is, as I said, on the 8th of January at 11:59 Central European Time. And we are going to have 2 info sessions, one which you are participating on currently, and then there will be another one very close to the deadline on the 5th of January, also at 2 p.m. Central European Time, for any final questions or clarification points that you might have. Then the phase 2, evaluation and selection, it looks a little bit like this. So as soon as the applications phase closes, we start with the evaluation period. So basically right after, the day after, that's where we open the envelopes for the evaluation by the committees. And as I said, we will have the high-ranking applicants that are shortlisted will be then invited at the latest during the 2nd week of February to submit their demonstration proposal. Invited entities or applicants have 1 week after the invitation to prepare and submit that. Again, it's a 2-pager, so it doesn't require too much elaboration, but it's of course important that you have enough detail and content in there. So from our experience, 1 week should be enough to get to that. Then we have the evaluation of the contracting party for all the proposals that come in, and there are 2 weeks. It's a 2 weeks process for that. So by the end of February, the 2nd phase of the tender comes to an end, and then we expect to start with the contracting phase on the 1st of March of next year. And then, as I said, it will be the first drafting of the collaboration agreement, the review and revision period during the 2nd and 3rd week of March, and then finally towards the end of March, proceeding to the signature, final draft and signature of the contract. That's a little bit the overview of the timeline that we have in front of us. And again, we need to be quite strict with that to make sure that we have enough time then for the implementation and for the collecting of results before the end of the project. And then just a few additional points before I finish. So as I said, the selection committee, we have selection committees for each of the case studies, made up by representatives of the case studies, of course, so the people who are who have elaborated the text and are representing the stakeholders within their community. And then for transparency and for clarity and openness, we also are involved in Brigade Connect in that initial evaluation procedure, together with our partners from the GAC group in France and UNSDSN as well. So as I said, it's a group of 3 to 4 people normally that are going through the applications and evaluating according to different types of criteria. So we have readiness levels, which include technical readiness, TRLs that you might be familiar with, but we also look at social readiness and we look at market readiness. So how acceptable, how ready for social acceptability certain innovation is, and also how close to the market it might be. And then we also have additional qualitative criteria, including feasibility of the testing or demonstration that is foreseen, how innovative the vision of the applicant is when it comes to solving the challenge that is foreseen, how promising an innovation is, and then its contribution to social and governance transformation. Again, all this is in full detail explained in the guide for applicants that is also available through the website. So please make sure you take a look into that so you can fully understand what these criteria entail and what we will be using to evaluate. So you can take that into consideration when you are formulating your responses to the questions. Yeah, and as I said, the shortlisted applications will be identified considering a minimum score so they can transit to the 2nd phase. Second phase, evaluation and selection. Again, the high-ranking applications will be invited to send a 2-page demonstrator proposal that will then be reviewed and assessed by the contracting party themselves. And then just to close once more, contracting phase with up to 50,000 euros in the contract. Again, have a look at the specific requirements for each of the case studies before you apply to them. Some of them might have less. In total, the ceiling will be 50,000 at most. And again, this contracting phase lays out the contractual terms for the collaboration and should be agreed between both parties and laid out clearly in that document for further reference. That would be it. Based on the contract is based on the application, on the information in the application, but then mostly on the 2-page proposal, where, as I said, timeline, budgeting, expectations are laid out in the first instance. That would be it for the first part.